In this lecture, I'll be discussing about the principles of geological mapping. So what is mapping? Mapping is the process of preparing map. So what is map? Map is a pictorial representation of features on the Earth's surface on a two-dimensional plane to a scale. So there are various type of maps such as topographical maps, thematic maps, geological maps, rainfall maps, etc. Or revenue maps are also available. So now we'll define what is map reading. It is a process of extracting meaningful information from the map. Okay, so we should know a few principles which are helpful to understand the geological setup in the area while mapping. So these laws are law of superposition, principle of horizontality, principle of lateral continuity, principle of cross-cutting, and principle of faunal succession. And the second point is we should adopt a proper methodology for geological mapping. So the stages include the pre-field preparation, determination of map scale, traverse planning, data acquisition, and finally map and section preparation. So we'll see one by one. So law of superposition. So it states that in undeformed stratigraphic sequence, the oldest strata will be at the bottom of the sequence. So from this we can actually estimate the relative age of the strata. Henceforth, it is a form of relative dating. So in this figure we can see the lowest most layer is older bed and the upper one is younger bed. Next is the principle of horizontality. So it states that the layers of sediments are originally deposited horizontally under the action of gravity, and they get folded later by some tectonic activity. So from this we can also determine the relative age of the strata. Therefore it is also a relative technique of age determination. So in these figures we can see there are two figures. One is horizontal, one comprises of horizontal beds and other has been folded by some tectonic activity. In the first figure we can see the originally the beds deposits under the action of the gravity horizontally. And next is the principle of lateral continuity. It states that the layers of sediments are initially extend laterally in all directions, and so the rocks that are similar but now separated by some process, for example valley or other erosional features, can be assumed to be continuous. So here in this figure we can see in the left side there is a horizontal there are horizontal beds. In the right side figure there is a valley from which the portion has been eroded. So by seeing the features of the bed we can actually extend the layers. Next is the principle of cross-cutting. It states that the geological features which cut another is younger of the two features. So there are various cross-cutting relationships. For example, it could be a structural, for example, faults and fractures. The intrusives, for example, dikes. It could be stratigraphic, for example, unconformity. Others are sedimentological, paleontological, and geomorphological. So these could be the younger events. Next is principle of faunal succession. So the sedimentary rock strata contains fossilized flora and fauna which succeed each other vertically in a specific and reliable order, and that can be identified over wide horizontal distances. So with that assumptions we can connect strata of, from different places if there are some events or erosion has been taken place in between. So the feature of diagnostic species or fossils should be fastest rate of species turnover with widest distribution. Okay, so here we can see in the left side figure there is a fossilized horizons, and in right side block there is also a fossilized horizon. So these could be the same bed, so we can correlate this fossilized horizontal bed based on the principle of faunal succession. So now we will talk about the methods of geological mapping. The methodology is very important because it will give the accurate and precise maps at the end of the mapping. So what are these stages? First is pre-fill preparation, second is determination of map scale, third is traverse planning, fourth is data acquisition, and fifth is map and section preparation. So in the pre-fill preparation, as geological mapping is lengthy and exhaustive work, so before reaching to the ground, extensive literature survey has to be carried out about the area. Okay, and already published map of that area should be thoroughly checked for the lithological and other structural features, and topographies of that area should be also acquired if necessary. And topographies are most essential because it gives the regional topographical localities and other drainage pattern in the area. And other than that, the essential field items should be kept ready, for example working sheets, GPS, compass, stereo net, etc. And one of the most important thing is we should always keep first aid box with us, so we don't know where it will be required, so we should keep it. Next is determination of map scale. So this is very important because in the process of mapping we have to fix the area and the scale, because the mapping could be of three stages or three kinds. It could be reckonatory, exploratory, or evaluations. So if we take a very large area with a small scale, let's say 1 is to 2,50,000 scale or 1 is to 50,000 scales, so this will cover a regional area. So this is basically regional scale mapping. It will cover the regional geological feature. And other is detail mapping, which is basically carried out in smaller area to incorporate greater geological features in detail. So this will include, for example, 1 is to 10,000 scale map or 1 is to 1,000 scale mapping. And the last, evaluation mapping, is basically it is a mining stage where the exploration for extracting a particular ore or some other mineral of interest should be carried out. For that the mapping has to done. So in that case the mapping in a one, say is 1 is to 500 or 1 is to 100 is carried out. So next is traverse planning. So traverse planning is also one of the essential work during the field. So traverse should be planned in such a way that the maximum lithologies of the area should be covered. Henceforth, traverse should always be planned across the strike of the strata, because along the strike there would no change in lithology, and the traverse spacing should be determined as per the scale of the mapping. So if it is a small scale mapping, so the spacing would be large. If the mapping would be large scale, then spacing would be closer. And next is data acquisition. This is also one of the important part of the geological mapping. So each and every outcrop should be checked thoroughly, and for each sample point the geographical coordinates should be taken, and the various data should be acquired while checking the outcrops. For example, lithological data, so we should take the orientation of the beds, for example dips and strikes. We should note out the color, grain size, and other primary structures if it is present. And also we should take care while noting the litho contact. The litho contact should be carefully recorded. So other is structural data should be also collected for the various outcrops, and this includes fracture, foliation, lineation, small scale faults and folds, etc. And alteration should be also noted down while checking the outcrops, and this gives basically some mineralization event has been taken place or not. So it will give some idea about what kind of geological process has been going on there. And also we should keep it practice that the sketches should be drawn as much as possible at the time of acquiring data. And to save times, we should use geological symbol while writing down the features. Okay, so this was the data acquisitions, and the last but not the least is the map and section preparation. So the maps are basically ultimate products of the mapping. Therefore, it should be a very clear, legible, and representative. Strikes, dips, and fractures, foliation, lineation, and other data should be incorporated carefully. A map should have a title mentioning the area. It should have a scale, arrow, and also the most important, legend in chronological order. It should also contain the geological feature and structures in the legend, and this map should have also the geographical coordinates. So one can also add the geological section if drawn along the particular line, and this should be incorporated in along the side or in the bottom of the map. So this was a basic idea about the geological mapping, the principles and methodology. Thank you.